Hi there and welcome. So, all right. So we're good. We're good on Facebook and we are good on Instagram. Hello and good evening. If you've never tuned into one of my broadcasts before, my name is Shauna K. Lester and I am the founder of Memorable Essay. I'm also the creator of the IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator, which is a premium program in which I help ambitious international medical graduates who are applying to the match. I help you as an IMG to prepare applications that stand out, prepare an application that gives you the best possible odds of matching. So tonight we are going to dive into a topic that is a favorite of mine. It's a very important topic, and so one that I love because it has to do with the fears that you face as an international medical graduate and what you can do with those fears instead. All right, give me 1 second. Right. And what you can do with those fears instead, because what tends to end up happening with international medical graduates is that you judge the fear even though you do work through it. Of course, the vast majority of people who I work with keep moving, keep putting one foot in front of the other despite the fear. However, there's a lot of judgment around the fear. So tonight we're going to talk about some of those big fears, just three of them actually, but some of the big fears and what you can do with them instead of judging them and instead of really being bogged down by them. So the first one tends to be true for persons who studied medicine at an offshore school. There is a fear around. I packed my bags up. I started over a new life. My friends and some family members, actually, sometimes some family members, they saw me leave home to basically go after this opportunity. What if at the end of the time, when I'm supposed to be seeing patients, when I'm supposed to be a doctor, I'm not a doctor? What do I tell them? What do I tell my family that made all of these sacrifices so that I'd be able to do this thing, right? To go abroad and to study medicine away from home. Those are fears that are very normal. I think, especially when you think of what will your friends say, what will your neighbors say, these are actually very normal fears to have. And so I encourage persons when they have those fears to ask themselves some questions to get to the root of the motivation. What is it that is causing you to have these fears? And oftentimes, when you think about something like, well, my friends are going to see me or my neighbors are going to know that I didn't match. It's something as simple as the fact that it is important to you to be somebody who is respected among your friends and somebody who is respected about around your colleagues or amongst your colleagues. And that is not necessarily a bad thing, and that is not necessarily a terrible thing, right? It just means that you are somebody who prestige is important to. Like, prestige is something that is important to you, and that is completely okay. So you are the kind of person who would want to be known as one of the best in your field, one of the best in your area, somebody who is progressing. Sometimes it's not even about impressing other people, and it's really about how you can win or how you can do well in order to motivate somebody else to do well. Hey there, right? And so that is a completely normal aspiration to have. And it's a fear that I encourage people to not judge, but to instead focus on what is the root of it, what is the motivation. And so here is the really interesting thing about when you actually get to the motivation that is driving what you see as a fear. You come up with lots of great content that you can put into your application. So, for instance, if you think about the fact that, okay, I don't want all my friends who know that I left home to see that I haven't matched, you can know that prestige is important to you, but where does that come from? Are you from a family that insisted on that when you were growing up, that insisted on they wanted you to be a physician, they wanted you to be somebody who would stand out in your field? That is something that is deeply rooted in your background and also rooted in your upbringing. And that's something that you get to write about in your motivation. The other part, or the other way in which I want you to treat this fear, the other part of the process is also something that can be extremely helpful to you. Instead of focusing on the fear of not matching, the fear of having to tell your friends and your family members that you did not match, focus on what that desire will look like once it is realized. So if you're somebody, and again, this is completely fine, do not judge it. If you want your friends and your colleagues to see you match, Focus instead your mental imagery on being able to post your congratulations, you have matched email, or being able to post pictures of yourself packing up, moving away to residency, being able to do a live on your first day of residency or your first week, or to show people pictures of all of the great and amazing things that you're doing. You want to focus instead on what the desire, what the opposite end of that fear is going to look like. Very important, and it can definitely change things for you. The second fear that is very common, and this is for foreign medical graduates, and I always encourage people not to judge it because it is extremely reasonable. You have a fear that you are going to be stuck in your career, that next year at this time you will be doing the same job for the same compensation, having not learned anything new in the year that went ahead, right? For some people, your senior colleagues, even colleagues who are younger than you, come, they go to medical school, they start the practice of medicine, they're matching and they're moving on with their career, and you are in the same place. This is a fear, but it doesn't have to keep you up at night. You don't have to talk down to it and ask yourself, why are you this way? You can simply think about, what is the motivation here? What is really driving me? For persons who are very afraid of being stuck at this age, or even worse, being stuck at 50 or 60, needing to hustle money, in their old age as a physician, these are very deep motivations. You're probably somebody who you really value growth, you value expansion, you value excellence, you value going to the highest that you can go in your career. And those are very deep motivations for you to take note of and to write down, because again, this is content that you can use in your personal statement, that you can use in your interview. Why is growth important to you? Why is personal growth important to you? Why is professional growth important to you? Why do you seriously feel as if you will die if you don't move on and if you don't match? Because not everybody has that fear. So the fact that these are fears of yours speak very deeply to who you are as a person, and that's material, that is content that you want to make use of in your application. Again, to complete the exercise, the other end then of that fear is to, instead of focusing on what it's going to look like when you have to keep coming to this job a year from now, is to focus on the desire realized. What will it mean? What will it look like? What will it taste like, right? When you're finally in an environment that you desire to be in, where you're being challenged intellectually, you're being challenged to grow, you're around people who are just as hungry as you are to grow in their medical career, what does that look like? What do you and your colleagues talk about when you go out to lunch? What do you talk about when you are doing your rounds, right? Who do you wake up to? What does it smell like? How proud do you feel of yourself? Instead of beating yourself up for your fear of being stuck in the same job, in the same place, or if you went to an offshore school and you're working or you're just at home studying, instead of being afraid of being stuck at your table studying this time next year, look at why you are so motivated to get unstuck and to go elsewhere, and focus your mental imagery on your desire realized. The third fear that we are going to chat about a little bit, which is another big one, I personally think about this a lot, which I think probably most persons who have, migrated, immigrated in some sort, moved about the world, you probably think about this a lot. It's the question of access. And I know that a lot of IMGs, especially FMGs, of course, are driven by thoughts of access. You are afraid that you, as a person, for the rest of your medical career, you could be relegated to practicing in one or a couple of hospitals in one country, in one geographical region. You won't know how to use certain technology. You are in a field, but you might never have access to rubbing shoulders with the best people in that field, with the most renowned people in that field, with the persons who are writing the textbooks in that field. And you think about that because when you think of yourself, you know that you are a hard worker. You know that you could put in the work to be in the same rooms as those people. You know that you could put in the work to practice medicine anywhere in the world safely and bring your patients outcomes, good outcomes, positive outcomes. You know that were you given the chance that you could make the most of it. And so you have a very deep fear of actually being under somebody's thumb or being geographically in the same place for the rest of your life. Again, very normal. I think these fears also even transcend residency and the residency process itself. It's just something that is very understandable. So, when you dig and you try to get to the motivations behind fearing not having access, what does that bring up for you? Are you somebody who values freedom? Are you somebody who values fairness and you think that it is fair that if you are among the best physicians in the world because of your brain power or your drive or your motivation, that you should be able to compete with the best in the world and to have access to the best things? Is that something that you feel very strongly about? How is that something that you can use for content in your personal statement and in your interviews? Is it that you want access because you are the first of or one of the few of your family members to do something? Is it that you want this access because you feel like if you get this thing, you know that every patient, when you go on to fellowship training in oncology, will have the best, most avid, most dedicated researcher on their side? Is it that you feel that if you get something to act, if you get access to something, that patients who otherwise would not have access to it will have that access? I don't know what it is for you, but I'm saying that beneath that fear is a motivation that will make excellent content for your personal statement, excellent content for your interview, if you explore it and if you own it and if you just spend some time with it and write it down. The tail end of that, what does that desire look like? What does it feel like? What will it feel like when your desire is realized and you have access to the best technology in the world? You're finally doing the job of a doctor and not the job of a porter and a nurse and a doctor and a phlebotomist and everybody in one. When you can finally focus on your skill set and do the work that you know that you were meant to do as a physician, or the work that you desire to do as a physician, what will it feel like when you walk into conferences with the leaders in your field or with the leaders in the subspecialty that you want to work in, and you'll sit there and you'll learn, and maybe one day you'll be, leading conferences and teaching medical students? What does that desire feel like when it is realized? You want to focus on that. So that's my word of encouragement to you. I think especially with 2020 and COVID-19, and for persons who have not done their CS and persons who are just otherwise in limbo, there is a whole lot of fear surrounding this process, and that is completely okay. The important thing to do is to keep moving forward despite the fear. Wake up, study, wake up, study, wake up, write, wake up, ask for letters. Just keep going, and of course, stay tuned to different announcements to know what's going on. And every time a fear about this process comes up for you, take a step back and look behind it. What is the motivation here? How can I use that for content for my application? And since this fear is hanging out in my head, how about I think about the opposite of that fear? What if I think about what will this look like when my desires are realized? Think about it using all of your senses. What will it feel like? What will it taste like? What will it look like? How will you feel mentally when it's happening? And those things will keep you moving along in your process. So as I said before, I'm Shauna K. Lester. I'm the founder of Memorable Essay and the creator of the IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator. If you're watching on Instagram and you're interested in having a one-on-one chat, a one-on-one free consultation to find out if our program would be a good fit for you, go to the link in our bio, and apply for a free consultation if we're a good fit. I'd love to get to know you. If you're watching on Facebook, that link is in the description to this video for persons who are applying to Match 2021. Would love to get to know you if you're looking for some one-on-one support. Don't focus on your fear. Get to the root and figure out the motivation and picture yourself when your desire is realized. All right, have a good night. Bye.